APICS, a part of the Association for Supply Chain Management, is a 60-year-old professional association attempting to make the world better through improved supply chains. The association provides best-in-class supply chain certifications for companies and individuals, as well as networking and general professional development opportunities for supply chain practitioners. The APICS coach sat down with an icon in the APICS community, Maryanne Ross, to gain her perspective on professional development and supply chain management. Listen to her story of working her way from driving a fork truck on the production floor to running her own company. Sounds pretty boring, so let's see if Maryanne can prove me wrong. Maryanne, thanks for speaking with me today. I'm just curious about your APICS involvement. How long have you been an APICS member?
I've been an APICS member since 1989, so this is my 30th anniversary in APICS.
1989.
Yes.
And you say it's 30 years.
Yes.
It's easy to calculate, which is what we do in APICS.
Absolutely.
So what was your first introduction to APICS? How did you get in?
I was a shop floor employee. I was a material handler. I drove a forklift in a medical manufacturing company in Ocala, Florida. And I asked so many questions about inventory accuracy, where did the inventory go, why wasn't it right, that my bosses at the time said, go take an APICS course and see if you can't find out what we can't figure out. And that was it. I went to my first APICS event and I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the availability of people to help me with my problems, and I found a whole group of people who wanted to talk nothing about else but inventory and production control, and I was a junkie from the get-go. That
seems to be the case with many APICS members I speak to, especially that have such a long history.
They're such giving people. I've found so many. I have longtime friends. I have friends, I've been friends with for 30 years since those first meetings.
And looking at your profile on LinkedIn, which I guess anybody can look you up, you have a lot of F's behind your name on these certifications. So one, what are the certifications, and two, kind of what does the F's represent?
So I have the CPIM certification. That was the first one I got. Then I got the CERM, which is a retired certification.
So that's old school, isn't it?
Yes, CERM was certified in resource management, which is a wonderful certification. I don't think APICS knew how to position it correctly. So I got CERM, then I got CSCP, and then 2 years ago I got the CLTD certification. And so the F either represents a high score, either earning the certification with a high score, or doing more volunteer work, more giving back to the organization in terms of presentations or involvement on the committees. I've been on multiple committees and as a resource in developing either the CPIM materials, the principles materials. I was part of the pilot team for CSCP, so I got most of my Fs through volunteer work rather than high score, although I do think I scored high enough on CSCP that I earned my fellowship that way for CSCP.
That's actually a pretty difficult distinction to get. That's why I was leading to. And you have what I call the triple F. I don't think it's official yet, but I kind of termed it the triple F. And from my calculations, unofficial of course, I'd say there's probably less than 0.5% of the APICS population has the triple F, and you're one of them. So.
Well, thank you.
And again, I don't know if that's true.
I am proud of having the Fs, the fellowship level at all three of the certifications. And again, it was just because I do a lot of volunteer work, and I just love APICS. So.
Now, have you been involved at the chapter level in terms of going to meetings, maybe leading any chapters, those types of things?
So I've been president of 4 chapters now.
4 chapters.
Chris, I started out in Florida as a member of a chapter. I was not president there, but then I moved to Virginia and I became president of the DC Metro chapter. I moved out into the suburbs of Virginia and I was president of the Blue Ridge chapter. That's 2. I was a proxy president for one of the chapters. When I was a district manager, we had a chapter that was struggling, and so for a brief period of time, I was president of the Cumberland Valley chapter. And then I moved to Maine, and I was president of the Maine chapter for
There's a
4 years.
Maine chapter?
There is right now. There is one chapter in Maine, and it's based in the Portland, Maine area. And so I was president of the Maine chapter for a while.
And you had mentioned the district, which they're kind of now defunct, but what you were actively involved with the district as well.
Yes, so way back when I was like 10 and 15 years ago, APICS was in regions. There was regional areas, and the chapters in that area belonged to a region, and then we went to a district structure. We went down to like 7 or 9 districts. And I was the district manager for the Mid-Atlantic District for a number of years, and got to work with all of the chapters in Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland.
Obviously, that helps grow your network.
It
So
did.
you know
It
a lot
was-
of people, and a lot of people know you.
Yeah, it was wonderful for reaching out to other volunteers in the other chapters and learning from them, and then giving presentations to help them improve their chapters. And then I went to the board of directors. I was on the APICS board of directors.
National?
Yes.
Or international board
Yes.
of directors?
Yes.
I didn't realize.
Yeah, I was on the board of directors, I think 2007, 8, and 9, or somewhere in that area.
What does that involve?
That was a phenomenal experience. I got to work with Abe at APICS headquarters, and with the other board members, and we were involved in working on the development of the strategy and the direction that APICS would take over the years in the future. And so that was a very rewarding experience, is to sit at that level and see things from the corporate perspective of APICS.
Yeah, because
I was proud of that work.
Yeah, we can't have volunteer-driven organizations unless we're able to make money and help self-sustaining at the corporate level. So I guess that makes, so you've seen both sides, and even the middle probably.
Yep.
Good for you.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So what has been your most rewarding role? Has it been, and because you're an instructor now, you've managed a chapter, you've been a student, you've been on the international board level. I mean, is there anything specific that sticks out?
Being an instructor is the most rewarding thing that I do. I do instruct for a living. I'm a full-time instructor, but I love teaching. I love helping people connect the dots. I love seeing lights go on in people's eyes when we talk about the concepts and we talk about best practices and what they could do to improve their organization. And when people earn the certification, and I know that's going to help them grow their career, that's the most rewarding to me. So I do it for a living, but I do a lot of tutoring. People just, I find people, or they contact me and say, I'm struggling to pass this exam, or, I got a 299, I need to get the 300 to earn my certification. And so I just work with them to help them improve their score and earn the certification. Because it's the certifications that grew my career. I was a shop floor employee. I have no college education. I am APICS developed.
And the certifications helped you from your career standpoint?
Absolutely. It helped me to come off the shop floor into a supervisory role. Actually, I skipped the supervisory level. That was my goal, is I wanted to become a supervisor, and I went into middle management right from the shop floor because of my first CPIM certification. And now I own my own company. And it was because of the different roles, the different volunteer roles, learning to manage first a chapter and then learning to help to manage a district and develop other chapters, and sitting on the board of directors. I got experience in different management concepts. I got to learn to work with people. I essentially earned a college degree, if you will, through the different roles that I filled as an APICS volunteer. So APICS has been very good to me, and I appreciate it.
Well, the body of knowledge is pretty much a degree in operations management. I mean, if you look at all the different aspects and services that we provide. I know some consulting companies and companies kind of adopt this as their standard, so that's good to know.
That's absolutely true. That was the technical skills, but it was the volunteer roles of being the president of the chapter, working with the treasurer of the chapter, doing marketing, managing conflicts between volunteers. Those were the soft skills that APICS gave to me as a result of the volunteer positions that really, to me, rounded out the education and enabled me to grow my career.
And you mentioned your passion for instructing or mentoring people. I would probably say more mentoring, although you're a very good instructor as well.
Thank you.
Having sat through a recent workshop with you, I can see your passion. It comes out in your style. And it was interesting to me how you communicated to somebody that said, look, if you ever have any questions, reach out to me, kind of like, and I don't know if you said this, but it's what I heard is you said, you're stuck with me.
I tell people that all the time. They're stuck with me, that, once they take a class, they're mine. In my mind, they belong to me. And, they can come back sometimes 5-10 years later. People will still reach out to me and say, hey, I'm struggling with setting my safety stock. I'm struggling. I don't remember the formula to do thus and such on the job. And so that becomes a passion, is to help them figure out how to solve that problem.
So, Maryanne, something you mentioned that triggered with me is you say somebody comes to you with a score of 299 on a certification exam. I see 299s a lot. Is there something about the 299 score that you can share with us, or what's your view on how people can get so close?
So when I was studying for my CERM, the second certification, that was a multi-exam process like CPIM was up until recently. I failed the first of the CERM exams by 299, and I was devastated. Yeah. It was like the world had ended. I got a 299, I'm a failure. And I had to go home and sleep it off, pretty much. And I woke up the next morning, the sun was shining again. I realized the world doesn't end because you get a 299. So when people come to me and they say, I got a 299, and they're beating themselves up, it's like, well, let's step back a minute. A 299 doesn't mean you failed by just 1 point. It's a scaled scoring. It's very detailed, very closely guarded and closely developed process by APICS. So they've failed by a little more than 1 point. It's a matter of having to get a few more questions right than they think. And so essentially it's a matter now of going back and helping them to increase their knowledge in that particular, whether it's CPIM, CSEP, or CLDT. They need a little more knowledge to get over that hump. So we go back, we use the exam content manual, which is available for every one of the certifications, and it is the primary tool for understanding what the committee wants you to know to earn that certification. So the exam content manual to me is like the Bible relative to the committee, telling us exactly what we need to know to be successful. So we go through the exam content manual, we look to see where their scores are the lowest, what area they're weakest in, so that we can increase their knowledge in that area of the material so that they get over that hump of that 299, and then their score is 300 points or higher, and now they have the certification.
Yeah, I see some people getting frustrated thinking that, I just missed it by 1 point. So I try to quell that disappointment by saying, hey, it's really not 1 point. It's just kind of what you said. Look at the exam content manual. Yep. I didn't realize we'd get a free coaching session today, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
That's good for our listeners. But what I enjoy, and I tell people about this, kind of what makes APICS different from many other associations, is it's a very hands-on organization, and I think you are the poster child of that, from what I see, because you said you started, at the production floor level. You've cycle counted, you've managed inventories, you've looked at production. You've had production as a customer, those types of things, and I think that really comes through in your teaching style, and in the types of things that people can expect when they join APICS.
Well, APICS is a little family, and you mentioned that, it's the relationships that we build within APICS. I have lifelong friends now. I have friends in Canada, I have friends in Europe, I have friends in Asia, India. I consider them to be like family members. As a matter of fact, next weekend I am flying to Canada to visit two of my best APICS buddies. They're like brother and sister to me. And so, many times when you've been in APICS as long as I have and you've got the certifications, you go to the conferences to see your long-lost family members. So it's a very giving organization.
And you're a great role model for it. I enjoy the way you think, and I say that only not talking to you frequently, but following you, not stalking you, of course, on LinkedIn. And you're fairly active on LinkedIn in terms of sharing. I think I see it more not promoting but sharing. So I know you recently took a trip to Europe, and you were doing some things beyond just enjoying yourself. What were you're giving posts about how they're managing a winery or something. Can you tell me a little bit more about that trip?
Yeah, so the primary driver for the trip was to visit my father's birthplace, and that was very emotional portion of the trip. But aside from that, we stayed at a farm / bed and breakfast, and my business partner in supply chain Mavens, Joni Holman, went with my family on the trip, and the farm produces wine. They grow their grapes, they produce wine. They have olive trees. They process olives at that time of year. Lavender is their big product, and so is saffron. So right now, very soon, they will be planting their bulbs to harvest their saffron in the fall. So it's a cold weather crop. And so saffron is a product that we didn't get to spend a lot of time with, but we got to watch how lavender, the essence of lavender, the leaves and the flower are distilled into lavender oil. We got to bring some lavender oil home. There's a lot of talk in APICS right now about the circular economy and sustainability, and one of the things that really fascinated me was watching how everything on that farm is utilized. They have the chickens, and of course they get their eggs, and they make many of their items, from their chickens, but their cows, they have the milk, they make cheese. One morning we were watching, they were cutting down overgrown bamboo shoots, and I thought, well, surely they're going to take that and burn it, or they're going to throw it on a compost heap to recycle it that way. And the next morning we watched them building poles for their beans. So it was just fascinating to me that everything gets used. So of course, my supply chain interest came out. I had to watch everything that was being done in Italy and relating it back to supply chain, because it's my passion.
Well, if that's what you enjoy, you might as well do it in a place you're having fun as well.
Yeah.
I laughed when I saw that, because I did something similar, took a trip to Hawaii, and it's just a chain of islands if you've been to Hawaii, and they have to move things with container ships. But it's on a barge. I don't know if you've seen that, and we're sitting there at the resort, and I see a barge going by with a container, and I started taking pictures. My wife was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This is fascinating stuff. It's a supply chain. They don't have a big enough port, so they got to bring it on a barge." I'd never seen that before.
Absolutely.
So I chuckled when I saw that. I knew exactly how you were thinking. So you talked about the circular economy. Yeah, I agree. That and the triple bottom line are very prevalent in much of the body of knowledge. We recently spoke with, I was looking up his name, Peter
Bolstoff from APICS.
Yeah, we spoke with him on a prior podcast, and he's talking about the new supply chain certifications. And you said you have some involvement with that? I
was very fortunate. My business partner, Joni Holman, and I were invited to sit in on the pilot of the enterprise certification, this new wonderful product that APICS is rolling out as a tool for our companies, for the enterprises. And think of it as a ISO certification for an organization relative to their economic their policies, procedures relative to economics, environment, and ethics. And it really struck a chord with me in getting to see the standards and the criteria that will be used to evaluate a company relative to their performance in all areas. Of course, companies have to pay attention to the bottom line, and they have to earn a profit, and they need to use best practices for that. But we also have to be respectful of the environment. It's our responsibility to protect this planet for our children, our grandchildren, and the generations to come. And also, we have to act in an ethical way. We have to be good citizens. We have to be good supply chain partners. So seeing this certification process, asking a company to assess itself and then be assessed by the organization to this criteria is just an awesome product. I can't say enough about it, and I'm really excited to see how organizations embrace this to continuously drive their improvement, the transformation of themselves and their supply chain partners. So that was very rewarding.
And you're staying involved with it, though, from what I understand.
I am staying involved in it. The thought was that my partner and I could become part of the assessment team, but then there's the passion that we have for training. So our thought is we want to learn enough, and we want to be able to train the assessors that APICS will need as companies begin to look to them to use this product, this new certification, to improve themselves.
Yeah, I look forward to, I think that's going to be a big change for or a big impact to supply chains, and I look forward to watching this evolve.
It's a tremendous product, and I think that companies really need to think about embracing it and using it to drive their transformation.
Now, you've mentioned a couple times supply chain Mavens. So what is that?
So 2 years ago, my business partner, Joni Holman, and I decided that while we love being involved in chapters and being volunteers, we make our living teaching APICS courses. And we needed to serve our customers faster, and we needed to streamline the process of getting courses up and running and serving our customers. And so we are now considered to be a for-profit partner to APICS. We are a premier channel partner. So this is a little different than the traditional volunteer model of chapters here in the United States. This is more like the model that is used in the rest of the world.
Okay, yeah, I know Mexico has some big,
yeah,
a good partner down there.
Yeah.
I don't know about Europe.
Europe has some well-established for-profit partners. So
yeah, because the chapters in the States are nonprofits,
exactly
501c6
right.
most
Yeah.
of the time. So that's the differentiation. That's nice. And so you're offering APICS certification. Anything else?
Primarily the APICS certifications, the CPIM, CSCP, CLDT. We are each studying now for SCORE, but I think that our SCORE interest is, again, more training, and the enterprise certification is based on the SCORE model. We every once in a while write a course for a company, or we tailor a workshop or a one-day seminar, or we go in to help with a specific problem. But I love teaching the certifications. I also like teaching the APICS principles programs. Yeah.
You seem to be pretty much a staple in that space. When I'm looking at the seminar schedules, you're kind of all around the country teaching the principles classes.
I get a lot of passion for MRP and inventory accuracy and control, and I do demand management, but I'm really passionate about the inventory and the MRP courses.
So essentially, you're available for, you can teach, you can help chapters around the country kind of supplement their supply as an instructor, and then you also teach straight as a supply chain maven.
Yes, we do. We still do a lot of work with chapters. We've developed a model so that the chapter still benefits financially if we have to come in and supplement their teaching staff. And we've developed a stable, so it's not just Joni and I, but we are using other master instructors as subcontractors so that we can handle the work for multiple chapters. We do face-to-face courses, which of course there's still an interest in, and we do web classes as well. So if there's students any hour of the day or night, we're ready to teach them.
Is there anything else you'd like to plug, or?
I would like to plug the APICS staff, the paid professionals at APICS headquarters that work really, really hard to ensure that we have the tools that we need to do what we do. Kudos to all of the volunteers. So many individuals give their time and their passion to APICS, and that's still, I so much admire that and still like to be part of that.
And something else I always like to end with for the future of our supply chain professionals. Do you have any words of wisdom for somebody just starting out in their career or interested in getting into supply chain management?
I would say go for an APICS certification, whatever it takes. All of my certifications up until the point of being a chapter president, I paid for myself. I paid for my CPIM out of my own pocket. I paid for my CERM certification out of my own pocket, and at the time my ex-husband and I struggled to say, is this going to be worth it? This is, at that time, seemed like a lot of money to be putting out, and people look at it that way, as wow, what an what a cost. It's an investment. You're investing. If APICS, if supply chain is a job to you, then it's a cost. If this is your career choice, it's an investment in yourself and in your career. So I did APICS, I did the 2 certifications. I also paid out of my own pocket for a Dale Carnegie course in order to develop the leadership, the personal skills, the personal relationship type of skills. And I will tell you, to this day, I would say that those 2 investments made the difference for me. Yeah. So learn as much as you can. Never stop learning. I'm 65 years old, and to me, when I stop trying to learn will be the day that I'm ready to start dying, because learn. Learn from each other, invest in yourself, and continuously improve.
Well, from what I've seen, you are an excellent APICS ambassador, somebody I'm glad to say I know and had a chance to meet. And I would just tell anybody listening, if you're interested in APICS, either the principles or certifications, check out the apics.org website and check her schedule. And if you can attend one of her events, I'd strongly encourage it. So, anything else?
That's it, Chris. Thank you.
Maryanne presents a compelling story and inspiration on how you could leverage APICS and professional development to improve your career and life. The certifications currently offered by APICS are CPIM for Manufacturing Planning and Control, CLTD for Logistics, Transportation, and Distribution, and CSCP for an overall supply chain perspective. And remember, supply chain is boring.